Some interviews with some vampires. Welcome to I Hope You Suffer.
Ugh. I like it.
This is episode 88 of I Hope You Suffer. My name is Nathan.
I'm Vladislav.
I am definitely Viago.
I'm Peter.
Yes.
Let's be real. Out of the three of us, I'm the most vampire-like since I'm pretty much mostly only awake at night.
That's true.
Alright, so if that didn't give it away, we are talking about 2014's What We Do in the Shadows. A movie Kit had not seen until now.
Because I'm an idiot.
Yeah. So, what did you think?
That was great. I'm mad at myself that I waited 6 years to watch that.
Oh my
I
gosh.
watched
right.
The Last Vampire twice before I watched this for the first time.
Yeah, you
upsetting.
were messing up.
Definitely probably makes you just question what you're doing with your life.
Oh, 100%. I'd been doing that a lot anyway, and this was just like the final nail in the coffin.
Wow, I love it. It was actually my anniversary of the first time I watched this movie. It came up on my memories or whatever for three or 4 years ago or whatever. And in the tagline, I was literally like, "Why did nobody tell?" I just had never heard of it until I stumbled upon it on. It was free on Prime at the time, and I watched it, and I was literally like, "Why has no one ever recommended this movie to me?" It's amazing.
I'm not sure how well it did, in theaters. It probably did pretty well overseas, since it's a whole, the whole, Flight of the Conchords crew or whatever. But,
Right.
I'm not totally sure what it did here.
I don't know.
It says box office 7 million, but I don't know if that's, worldwide or domestic or...
For
What?
that number, it says cumulative.
Yeah, that
worldwide.
feels like worldwide for something like this.
Yeah, USA was 3, so
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's not...
still pretty good, pretty surprising.
It seems pretty, I know, people know who, Flight of the Conchords are, and now people are aware of, Taika Waititi. But, I feel like in 2014, I feel like America wasn't super hip to this crew. So.
yeah, I don't think so.
The hell of a sentence.
What was that, Kit?
Said that's a hell of a sentence.
Yeah.
America wasn't hip to this crew.
Well, America needs to get their shit together.
I agree.
And just this
More ways
circumstance.
than one.
No, just this. We're fine the rest of the time.
Everything else is...
Wow.
So this was directed by Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi, and written by both, starring both. Probably one of the very few movies that can say that and still be good.
Yeah. I would wager.
Stars Jermaine as Vladislav, Taika as Viago, Johnny Bruh, I guess, Brugh, as Deacon, Reese Darby as the leader of the Swearwolves.
Yes.
Which was the reason I originally watched this, because I was already a fan of Reese Darby, and I was like, oh, I'll check this out, and was very surprised how good it is. This movie super rules. Alright, so my notes are crazy. I feel like this is a movie, the format is weird enough to try to lay out to people. So, we'll see.
I mean, it's basically The Office, but they're vampires.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it is. It's just like a document. It's like, the documentary style, but like plot wise, it's not necessarily a plot. It's just like a couple days in the life, or I guess a couple months, technically. But
That's a
it starts out with their flat meeting and the introduction to the main characters. And their flat meeting about how Deacon won't do any of the dishes and their chores. I like the backstories of like where Vladislav is like, I was turned when I was 16 years old. That's why I haven't aged.
You're right, and he's like definitely not 16.
Deacon is like the cool guy of the group, apparently.
He's the bad boy.
Viago, I just put, is the nerdy guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Peter.
I like Viago's full name.
Oh shit, I don't remember what it is.
Viago von Dornischmarten Schedenheimberg. Nee von Blitzenberg.
And the fourth of their flatmates is Peter, who is essentially Nosferatu. It's just
a legend.
Lives in the basement. Except I like when they show like later on after spoilers, Peter dies, and they're showing like the pictures of the group throughout time, and they have the one in like the 70s where they're all leaning against a car in like 70s outfits, except Peter, who's still in just like his black cloak.
That part of the movie, like when I originally saw it, killed me because that picture was like going around as a meme at the time. And I don't remember like what the meme was. So I had already seen that picture before I watched the movie and I had no idea what it was. So it just cracked me up.
It's so good. Peter is like my favorite part of this movie.
Yeah, he's very good.
After you get kind of like all their introductions, you get some stuff with Viago talking about how he came to the country, which they're all in New Zealand. And he had his servant put him onto a ship with the wrong postage to send him to meet the love of his life in New Zealand. He made it numerous years later, only to find out she'd been married at that point.
Oh, it was only like 18 months.
Oh, was it? I thought it was years.
No, he was like, it took me 18 months, and she had already fallen in love and gotten married. I was like, oh, that wasn't long.
This whole running story is genius. This is like especially how it ends. And you get like the shit with him with his silver necklace on that she gave him.
I love it so much.
He's just like, that's a picture of me. I put it in there on my own, and then he puts it on, and he's just like showing it back and forth as his chest starts to smoke.
And he's like crying.
That's so good. I have just them, like the note of them playing as a band in here that I feel like wasn't important, but I put it in anyway.
No, the only thing I wanted to add is like when they're talking about like just like introducing themselves is like one of my favorite parts because they're talking about how Deacon and they say like how old they are. He's 183 years old. He was a Nazi.
Oh,
and
yeah,
he's
that's
like,
right.
he was like, I was a Nazi, blah blah. He was just, the Nazis lost that war, and so if you're a Nazi, like they didn't like you, and if you're a vampire, I mean they didn't like you, and if you're a Nazi vampire, forget about it. And then he was talking about how he like got turned, and he was just like, yeah, I saw this creepy castle, and I looked and I was like, wow, it's a creepy castle, and then this thing flew. He tells this like really, really long story, and it turns out that it was just Peter that turned him, and they're both just like sitting at like a tea table, and he was just like, yeah, it turned out to be Peter, and we're friends to this day, and Peter's just like sitting there with his like long like Nosferatu like hands, and he just like nods, and it cracks me up.
I like when Viago goes down to the basement to tell Peter about like the flat meeting, and he's just talking to him, and he's just completely like not responsive to him, and then he just gives him like a bag with a live chicken in it.
It's nacho chicken. I love it.
Yeah, so like all of my notes, I didn't write like any of the jokes. I just wrote sort of kind of what happens. So definitely just jump in with jokes because
Yeah, I tried really hard not to like write down most of the specific quotes because it's just like one of
Do the
those
whole book?
movies. Right, right. It's just like one of those movies where every line is delivered just so like casually. Like this is just like a real vampire just being like, well, you know, like you need to do the dishes and stuff like that. So I try not to write down like specifics because like obviously we all really like this movie and we want people to watch it. So you won't be spoiled,
like
you know, by listening. But
yeah. And you get stuff with them getting dressed to go out for a night in the city where they they lament that they can't see what they look like in their reflections. And like it's just a bunch of stuff. Like I think Viago with like the teacup, and he's just like, "Oh, ghost teacup," and like
Ghost cup. I literally one of my lines of notes is just ghost cup because I love the way he says it. His face just like cracks me up. The way he just like smiles with it because they all have like, you know, like fangs. I don't know, but the way that he just smiles with the fangs anytime he looks at the camera, I just laugh. I can't help it.
Was it Viago that did the like? He does like a little charcoal drawing of Vlad to show him what he looks like in his outfit.
I think so.
I think Deacon and I think they were all doing it, like drawing each other to show them.
I feel like one of them says something about how like they want to look cool and like hip, but they're all wearing clothes from like the 15th century.
Yeah, and then Viaga's like, you know, our clothes are either like old or they're from victims.
Victims.
And he's like, you know, sometimes you might just be drinking blood and be like, hey, those are really nice pants. And then he comes out wearing like the worst camo pants from, you know, like 2015 ever with his like frilly like Seinfeld pirate shirt. It's
Bringing that fashion needs to come to the masses.
Mhm.
More puffy shirt.
Yes, and camo
And
pants.
lacy cravats.
So they go out to the city, and you see them kind of like talking to people, and they talk to these little girls who are vampires who spend their nights going out hunting pedophiles.
Hard
Which is
stand.
a pretty funny like run throughout the movie. But they're talking about how because they're vampires, they have to be invited into places, so they have to go and just try to get the door people to like invite them into the bars. And I forget what the name of the bar is they eventually get to, but it's just like an empty bar with like two other people in it, and they're just like dancing in this like terrible empty bar.
Because it's
Like,
like
it's the hottest nightclub for vampires, and it cuts to like just the three of them dancing, real spaced out.
And that's when you were introduced to Jackie, who is Deacon's familiar, who he's promised to turn her into a vampire if he does like his bidding. And do they say how long she's been doing it?
Like 5 or 6 years, I think
yeah.
she says.
Yeah.
It's like 4 or 5 years.
He's like talking to her about how he wants some victims for tonight, and he wants like she's like, so I assume female, and he's like, yeah, female, and she's like, well, what about male? And he's like, male too.
One of each.
Yeah. And he wants virgins specifically. And then and you get to, I think, my favorite joke in the whole movie of Viago talking about like just kind of going over like when they bring victims home, and he's like, you know, it's like you kind of want to be nice to them in their final moments, and he's got like a lady there, and he's like being nice to her as he's setting newspaper down on the ground. He puts a bib on and bites her and hits a major artery, which just starts going everywhere.
I like how he tries to fight through it. It's
Yes.
like a water hose being sprayed in your face, and you're still trying to take a drink.
It rules. It comes back later, like when Nick is getting chased through the house, I think. It's so good. And he's just like... It cuts to like him in the aftermath standing in the hallway covered in blood with like a hand of like with paper towels in his hand.
But that
He's
didn't
like-
go well.
Yeah. That didn't go very well.
And you get another pretty fucking perfect joke of Vladislav trying to hypnotize a victim outside of the house. Like he's and like then you get the story about how he's like he had this fight with a character called the Beast that he lost to, and it kind of like hurt his shit, what's that word?
His
Like
ego.
confidence and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's like standing outside of a window, like and this lady's like watching TV, and he's just like, he's like, look at me, yeah, see me.
See
And
me.
eventually, cause
She,
no, like he
goes, she can't see me from this angle.
like it shows him doing it to like another house with like a dude, and he's doing it. And he just like punches the window as he's saying it, so the guy looks over at him. And you get Jackie bringing over 2 victims who I forget what I don't know if they actually say the lady's name, but I know one of them's Nick.
Josephine.
Is it Josephine? That sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. She doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but
And there's like a scene at their dinner table where they're the vampires are sitting around with Jackie, Josephine, and Nick, and like kind of just talking to them and being nice, and like somebody says something about like virgins, and like Nick's like, oh, I'm not a virgin. Josephine's like, I'm not either. Jackie's like, well, look at her. How was I supposed to not know? Like, she looks like a virgin.
he was like, who'd sleep with her? Not me. And Deacon goes, or is it Deacon? It was either Deacon or Vlad was like, I would. And then there's just like awkward silence.
And then Viago brings them out essentially SpaghettiOs. But like, I don't know. It's just like a can of spaghetti.
This might be my
Yeah, Paschetti.
I think this might be my favorite scene of the whole movie, to be honest.
It's pretty fucking good. So he pours like this canned spaghetti onto their plates, and like Nick takes a bite out of it, and is it Vladislav or Deacon that's just like, oh, why are you eating worms?
I think it's Vlad.
Yeah. And like Nick's just like, oh, what? Why is this plate full of worms here? And like freaks out, and he's like, oh, that's weird. Why did you have a snake for a penis?
He goes, Nick, how does it feel to have a snake for a penis?
And his reaction is so like sort of nonchalant, where he's just like, oh, guys, I don't know what's happening. Like, I got a cobra for a penis right now.
And my
He
favorite is
handled it
when
really well.
he did, because then he's like, when he goes to leave, he's just like, I don't know, this is really weird. Like, they're making me eat worms. They turn my dick into a snake. It's not cool, man. Like, as if they just insulted him or something. It's just so funny.
And then you get like a scene like of complete fucking chaos.
I love this chase scene throughout the house. I was dying the entire time,
It's
mostly
it's so
because of the
good.
music. The music is perfect.
Yes. It's like there's so many jokes that just like blur by of like, so Nick is like finally like freaked out and is trying to get out of the house, and at one point like it's like Viago doing the same thing he did earlier, where he just like bites into Josephine. There's just blood spraying everywhere in one of the rooms. You run by Vladislav as a cat, which
He's like a cat,
there's
but it's his face.
I think there's like a bonus scene that got cut that's like discusses him transforming and how
They
like
had mentioned it during when they were talking about him battling the beast and it shaking his confidence that he could transform into animals but couldn't quite get the face right.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think there's like extended stuff with that in the like the deleted stuff. I could be wrong though. It's been a minute since I watched the bonus things. At some point, like Nick runs into a room and he's got his fucking backpack on, and I think Deacon is who starts like popping out of it.
Yeah. Which is actually pretty cool because you don't really like they don't really do like too many like quote unquote horror like things that happen, but I thought that was really cool looking.
Yeah, and the way they did it is really good because it's pretty obvious, as you know, like the effect of him just being like behind Nick popping out of the backpack and then like CGI to throwing the backpack with him coming out of it later, or like after it hits the ground.
Yeah.
Nick eventually makes it like out of the house after like running, trying to like get out through windows and doors and shit that are all locked. And as he's running through the woods, Peter pops up out of nowhere and gets him.
What a really good camera guy. Stayed on him the whole time.
Camera guys are getting like...
It's an athlete.
They're getting their money's worth with these camera guys.
They are.
It's like Peter gets Nick and you just hear like in the background like Viago just be like, oh man, Peter already got him.
Such disappointment.
It cuts to 2 months later where Deacon is doing his erotic dance for Vlad and Viago.
My favorite thing, I don't know. Now that I'm saying stuff, I think Deacon might be my favorite because there's a scene in the beginning where he was talking about being a Nazi. He was like laying in a chair in like the most unflattering angle, and he's just like, when you become a vampire, you become very sexy, and he just kind of like gestures to himself like as an example, and he's like not at all.
He's pretty fucking good. Like his erotic dance is insane. But it gets interrupted by Nick, who has showed up as a vampire, like floating at the window, like up to their second story window, but doesn't totally have like the hang of floating yet. And like when they invite him in, he's just like, it takes him like 5 minutes to get into the house, and then he gets yelled at where they're just like, I forget who yells at him. I think it's Vlad, but he's like, you can't just keep like floating, or maybe it's Deacon. But he's like,
I think it's Deacon because Deacon like hates him.
He's like, you can't just keep like floating up to the house, like the neighbors will see. And Nick's just like, you have a full camera crew following you around with you at all times. And you get Nick talking about his story of becoming a vampire and like him going to urgent care with a fucking, he's like, he's like, I woke up and he's like, I was cold, I had this giant neck wound, and it was weird, I kept getting hot and then cold and then hot and cold. And it's just like this montage of Nick and like what he went through for the last 2 months, including a scene of like him scratching a record on their Victrola. And then it's just kind of shit of like Nick teaching the other 3 vampires kind of a modern world shit. I think this is when you're introduced to Stu.
Yeah.
Stu is Nick's best friend who doesn't realize he's a vampire.
Stu is so good.
Yes,
Stu's the best. We stand Stu.
We do.
And then like they basically all go out to a bar again, and I think this is where they get into the good bar because like Stu and Nick know a guy that could get them in. And it's just like that, like Viago losing his mind at the floor that lights up. I think like the entire time Deacon's just like, oh, this bar's not that good, just because Nick got him in.
Yeah. Is this when he was like this? Never mind. I think this was later.
Was it where you're gonna say when he's like bragging about being a vampire?
No, but I think what I was thinking is like the same when he was just like, did you see his jacket? It's like the same jacket as I'm wearing.
No, I think that's now, and I think that just runs for like a little bit.
The whole thing, yeah.
But they leave the bar and they go like walking down the street, and one of the guys is like, "Oh, everybody be careful! I smell a werewolf." And you're introduced to the group of werewolves led by Rhys Darby. Which is probably like the one joke that I feel like at this point everybody knows from this movie.
I would think so.
And it still killed me.
Oh, it's so good. Rhys Darby's delivery of like everything is great.
I was so happy to see him in this because I didn't know he was in it.
Yeah, he's great. So they just have like just the back and forth of werewolves and vampires being enemies. Like the one line, this is like, he's like, oh, well, why don't you go smell someone's crotch? And he's like, we don't just smell crotches, we do it as like a form of getting to know each other and saying hello and like or whatever.
Yeah, he says like, why don't you go like smell your own crotch? And he's like, we don't smell our own crotches, we smell each other's. And the guy was like, they've got cameras with them, like, shh, don't say that.
And the entire time, like, somebody drops like a gay slur about the vampires. I forget what it is, and Rhys Darby's like, hey, knock it off, what am I always saying? We're werewolves, not swearwolves. Like the whole every time like somebody curses until later in the movie when Rhys Darby does it a bunch as they're about to transform.
Oh yeah, and he was just like, I'm very stressed, the moon is full, it's transformation night.
I think the next thing is like, at least the next thing I've written down is Nick telling Stu about being a vampire.
Yeah.
They end up getting back to the house, and then it's just like a montage of Stu just helping the group out with like technology and shit. Like he gives them phones so they can take pictures of themselves to see what they look like.
Oh yeah.
And like they all Google like sunrises so they can see what the sunrise is like again.
It also keeps like cutting back between Nick talking to Peter, and he's just like, hey, like, I know that you know, you turned me into a vampire and stuff, but like, can you not do that to Stu, because like he's a vegetarian? And like, and I love how Peter's just like nodding along to like what he's saying.
At some point Stu helps Viago find his old servant who is now in his 90s, and like they like FaceTime with each other or whatever, and like his servant, he's just like, oh, well, you know, you put like the wrong postage on there, like I never made it in time. And then he like the servant starts freaking out. He's like, you said you promised me you would help me like become a vampire. So I'm like 96 years old now. And then,
I never did anything with my life because I was waiting for you.
Viago just like slowly is like, oh, that's nice. Is like reaching his hand out and like just turns it off.
It's good to talk to you. Bye.
So good to see you. Also, we didn't mention that they all have accents, and so it just like makes all of this like so much funnier too, because like the way that they enunciate things that are like modern is like just really funny.
Katie, a fan of making fun of accents.
Not making fun of them, but I do enjoy a good accent.
They're like New Zealand via like Transylvania accents are pretty funny.
Yeah.
And you get a scene of like Viago going to the retirement home that is it Catherine was?
Yeah.
Catherine, who was like the lady he came to New Zealand for, who just like hanging out, stalking around outside like a fucking creep.
Normal behavior, yeah.
And then you get a scene of the group at, I think, the same bar, and this is where Nick's telling everyone that he's a vampire.
Yeah.
He's just like running around. He's like, Twilight. He's like, you know that movie Twilight? I'm the main guy. I'm Twilight.
I'm Twilight.
Oh, it's so good. And he gets like, there's like a confrontation with Vladislav about it, where he's like, you can't just keep telling people you're a vampire. And there's like the scene of him at like the fucking gas station telling the dude, or not the, he's just a little like a little like Quickie Mart type place.
Yeah, at like a convenience store. Yeah.
And he's just like he says something about like transformations, and the guy's like, prove it, and he just does that like quick like face thing. The Stu's just like hanging out in the background, just like, hey guys.
Stu is always just like has like no expression on his face, like no matter like when they run into the werewolves earlier, then they like close up on Stu, and he's just like standing there with a burrito, like just, you know, he's totally chill.
He just seems happy to be there.
Yeah, right. He's like the perfect straight man.
Yes.
At some point, you see like a clip where Nick tells some dude he's a vampire, and the guy's like, "Oh, that's funny. I'm a vampire hunter." And Nick's just like, "Right," and just like leaves.
He's like, "Fuck you, man. Skype me."
like he's like at one point, like the whole group is like walking down the street, and Nick's just yelling Twilight. and and him and Deacon get into a fight to where they have a fight as bats.
Bat fight.
Bat fight.
Yeah, and like the rest of the group's like, hell yeah, bat fight. Deacon obviously more in touch with his powers, like just beats Nick, and then Deacon just goes flying off in like a rage. Nick's jacket has now been torn.
Sad.
Yeah. And then like it just cuts to them sitting in like a late night restaurant, I guess, like just a little like
chip shop.
Yeah, chip shop, I guess. Where Stu is eating French fries and Nick is trying to he's like, oh, why are you eating worms? And the rest of the group's just like, oh, that doesn't work. It has to be something that already looks like worms. And Nick just gets frustrated and eats a fry, and one of them's just like, I wouldn't do that. And it just cuts to Nick throwing up forever. Just throwing
like
blood
projectile vomiting.
Oh, rules. I think it's then when you have the scene of Deacon telling Jackie he can't turn her because now Nick is a vampire and cut her place in line.
Yeah. Such a dick.
She's obviously bummed. I think he like goes to her house and she just keep telling her kids like, don't look at him, don't look at him. You get another scene of Viago at like Catherine's place again and telling a story about her getting married that for some reason I don't remember now. I don't remember if there's anything funny in that. Oh no, that's right. Yeah, he's telling the story and it cuts to him where he's like at a computer and he like scans like her picture from the locket. And he like he puts it in like he goes like tapes it to like the inside top of his casket and it closes and then you just hear wood banging.
After he's like says something very sweet about like how he saw how happy she was with her like husband or whatever, so he was just gonna like let her be happy, and then that happens.
I don't know why.
Extremely solid masturbation joke.
I don't know why I've never thought about the idea of vampires jerking off, but
because they're undead, I feel like they don't have.
I feel like that's
penises.
All they would do.
I don't know. It really depends on which lore you're going with, because sometimes, it's like, yeah.
So it cuts to the next morning, and there's like a bunch of noise going on, and you see a
kerfuffle.
Yeah, kerfuffle, and they go to the basement Peter lives in, and they open it, and Peter's just like running around on fire. Vladislav goes running off and grabs like a cup of water, comes like running back and just like it's like everybody out of my way, and like tosses it and just doesn't even hit Peter.
It's like a sprinkle of water at that point.
I love that he totally misses, and it's like the tiniest amount of water, and he just sits there and goes, "I was too late."
He's like, will you stop filming? Our friend was just killed in a fatal sunlight accident.
So it turns out that the guy that Nick rated to earlier said he was a vampire hunter was really a vampire hunter who broke into the basement and like due to like smashing the light, he opened Peter's like concrete coffin, and Peter was able to kill this guy before the sunlight got to him. And the sunlight killed Peter. And you get...
Viago goes, sweet Peter.
Yeah. The vampire hunter's head has been, like, twisted all the way around. And, like, Nick shows up, and, like, they said, like, he's down in the basement with, like, the other three guys now, and they're, like, showing him the guy, and Nick's just like, oh, yeah. He's like, I know that guy. I told him I was a vampire the other night. And it's like Deacon then chases him again, and they fight again
on the ceiling.
To the point where Nick is like backed up into the corner of the ceiling, like Deacon's floating in the air with Vladislav like holding him back. And then there's a knock at the door, and they all freeze. And the police have shown up on a noise complaint. Viago answers the door, and like he's just like, "Oh no, the police!" And like they, they're like, can we come in? And he's like, I guess you could come in. And then immediately is just like waves his hand in front of their faces as they're going up the stairs, and he's just like, you will see nothing out of the ordinary. And he's just like, I hope this works. My hypnotizing skills aren't very good.
After he says it, the lady cop's immediately like, well, we certainly hope we don't.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is that these officers are also in another show called Wellington Paranormal. That's like basically just like a spin-off that's made by, is it Taika? And Vlad. And I just think that the lady cop, O'Leary, is just my favorite because she just, like, her lines are just so deadpan and it's just like so conversational. And she's just like, yeah, you know, it's not, there's a scene like later on that is my favorite when she's talking to the camera or whatever, but it's really funny.
The police in this are so good because they're like extremely deadpan, but they're constantly just like, they'll be doing something like, hey, what's that? And the group's like freezes, and it's like, you know, they go, he brings them into the kitchen where Nick and Deacon were fighting, and Nick's still like up in the ceiling. Vladislav and Deacon are like frozen in midair basically, and he like, the one cop's like, hey, wait, what's that? And he points up at Nick in the corner, and he's like, oh, no smoke detectors. So they go down to the basement where Peter's like ash body is there, and like the vampire hunter's down there with his neck all broken, and like the police are just like, oh, what's this guy's problem? And they're just like, oh, he had a little bit too much to drink and you know, just passed out down
he's
here.
Asleep.
Yeah. And like so they buy that, and then like the cops is like, wait, what's this over here in the corner? And you see like Peter's like ash body, and it's just like a bucket behind it with some kind of like liquid, and like it's next to like an outlet or some shit, or like a circuit box, and he's just like, oh, this is a fire hazard too, you guys gotta be more careful.
She's like, you got a lot to think about.
And so they leave, and then it cuts to Nick having to face the group as they like decide what to do to him about the crime of telling a vampire hunter about them.
They're holding a trial, and he's got 3 things. Oh, well, they're like, we're going to hold a trial, and it seems like it's going to be like really like, you know, a vampire trial, but then Viago starts reading, and he's like, problems we have with Nick. And he's like, number 1, bringing a human into the house. That's a no-no for vampires. And then they're like, oh, but it's Stu, so it's fine. We'll just cross that one off.
Stu's pretty cool.
The second, number 2, is the vampire hunter. And he's like, you know, who killed Peter? And he's just like, well, that should have been number 1, but we were building up to it. And he was like, number 3, Deacon doesn't like that you wear the same jackets as him. We want you to find your own style.
So he is found guilty and is punished to the procession of shame, and like is like kicked out of like their group, and it's just the procession of shame as they go outside and circle him and just point and say shame at him. Shame. Viago is very disturbed by this. He's like, I tried, like I didn't want it to get this harsh, but
it's very severe.
So Nick is now like kicked out of the group, and it cuts to several months later where they get an invite to the masquerade for the undead, basically, because it's vampires and 1 zombie.
The dearly departed.
And to where it is revealed that the guest of honor is not going to be Vladislav like he thought it would be. It is the Beast.
The Beast.
And it's just a bunch of shit of Vladislav being depressed, where he's now just like turned into this weird ashy gray color and old.
Yeah, I just wrote he looks decrepit.
I like the making fun of him, like, for how much he talks about the Beast. It's like, oh yeah, he went into the bathroom and he fought the Beast in the toilet. And...
My favorite side joke about, like, on this part is where Viago's talking about how, like, you can like dress up for the masquerade, and like the year before he went as Whoopi Goldberg in Sister Act, and he's like, that didn't go over very well because I was a nun and vampires do not like nuns. And then like randomly they cut to him, he's like, oh, maybe this is what I'm gonna wear to the masquerade, and he is Blade.
Yeah. Arguing about the Blade pants. So it goes to Viago and Deacon going to the masquerade. There's just a bunch of shit here. Shit, like a bunch of vampires, and since it's the undead, there's like one zombie in the crowd.
Yeah.
It is revealed that the beast is Vladislav's ex-girlfriend Pauline. Nick is also there.
She prefers Pauline.
Yeah. Nick is also there and has brought Stu with him, which is a big no-no. Because Stu is a human.
This is also where you find out that Nick has turned Jackie into a vampire.
Jackie comes like running up to Deacon,
pissed.
And like she's just like, oh, he's like, what are you doing here? You can't be here. You're a human. And she's like, oh, not anymore. Like, yeah. So Deacon again is mad at Nick for turning his servant into a vampire.
It's like, that's very rude. You should have at least asked me.
I do like all of the quick jokes of Jackie throughout the movie, like having to like clean up after them. He's just like scrubbing blood out of the carpet and shit.
There's like one scene where she's like in the bathroom and there's just blood everywhere, and she's just like, she has like a little scrub brush.
There's like a bunch of shit here of like them just like dancing and like interacting with other vampires, and eventually like you see a scene of like Stu talking to the zombie, and he's just like, the zombie's like smelling him, and he's like, oh, are you pre-deceased? And Stu's just like, no, I'm dead, and like gets up and like walks away, and the zombie just starts like shuffling after him. And it starts to be like where the entire like masquerade ball of vampires realize that Stu is human. You see like a scene of like everybody dancing, and it cuts to a mirror, and it's just Stu and the zombie in the mirror reflection.
That was a good one.
Like eventually the entire like masquerade starts circling around them as like Viago and Nick and Deacon are trying to like protect Stu, and there's just like a lot of arguing back and forth, and Vladislav shows up to save Stu in like
in a fantastic outfit.
Yes, his mask is top notch, and he's like talking, and everyone's like, who is that? And he like can't get it off.
He's got like Dracula hair. That's great.
Like that's when like him and Pauline are like arguing, and she's like, quit referring to me as the beast, and he's just like, quit referring to me as the asshole. Like, so like they're arguing, and they're slowly getting ready to fight. Like this whole group is getting ready to like pounce on Stu and like fight Vladislav, and Stu like pops up like, oh no, that's right, it's like Pauline's now current boyfriend tries to fight Vladislav.
Which, like, I guess he's a vampire, but he looks so, like, he looks jacked up.
I think it was...
He's got a lumpy face.
I thought it was makeup for, like, the, how they're dressed up. Like, it's supposed to be kind of like a Halloween costume type thing. That's what I thought it was.
I don't know, but my favorite thing about their fight is that it's, like, whenever the vampires fly or whatever, it's like pretty obvious that they just like pull them up on strings, and they just sort of like roll with it. So like there was a scene earlier, the scene where like Deacon and Nick Deacon and Viago in like the very beginning start like hissing at each other over the dishes, and it like pulls them up, and then they like kind of struggle to sit back down correctly, and it's like very funny. And so in this scene, it's literally just like whoever Pauline's boyfriend is, and Viago just like swinging towards each other kind of, and just like pushing each other. It's not a real fight at all, and it's so funny.
Eventually, like in the middle of the fight, you see Pauline's boyfriend get piked in the chest, and it turns out it was Stu with this very long pike that I don't know where he got it from.
Decoration.
Just keeps that motherfucking thing on him.
So they eventually all leave. They're all like banished from the masquerade ball now. And they go like walking through the park and they're all like celebrating. They're like, Stu, that was amazing. To where they again, walking through the park, stumble across the werewolves who are all chaining themselves up to trees right before the full moon.
Mm-hmm. As you do.
Rhys Darby yelling at him about like, I told you guys not to wear these nice clothes. You're just gonna ruin them. He's like, he yells at one of them about how he like just bought this fancy jacket that he's got on, and they're all like trying to undress before they change.
He's like, "Where's your tracksuit?"
He's like, tracksuits are like expandable. One of them's got a lock that he can't get open because he bought a combination lock that he doesn't know the combo to. And like,
he lost the key last time. I mean, you know.
I just like that as the vampires like stumble up, like Rhys Darby's like, "Oh, not tonight! Like, we don't have time for this. Like, just don't fuck with us tonight." Like, and so like they're kind of like, you see a bunch of shit with like the werewolves, and then like all of a sudden like they all start to transform before they could get locked up, and the vampires like all start like running away. One of the camera guys gets killed pretty viciously.
Yeah, R.I.P.
And there's like a bunch of shit with like Stu gets attacked by him, and I think like Nick is like floating in the air trying to like fight them off to get like away from Stu, but Stu gets mauled pretty badly.
He gets like ragdolled. He's just like flying through the air. Nick's like, "Stu, are you okay?"
So Stu gets killed by these werewolves. You see like a scene with like Deacon trying to like comfort Nick. And doesn't he say something where he's just like, you know, he died doing what he loved, like getting attacked or some shit like that.
Getting disemboweled.
Yeah, getting disemboweled.
He gives him this speech about how like being a vampire like essentially means that everyone you know eventually dies, but it's like a very long graphic talk.
He's
like
he's like, you know, like they die of old age, and like it leads up to something like getting killed by ducks wearing a suit of bread.
Yeah, he's like, sometimes you make a mask out of crackers and then you get attacked by ducks. And I was like, oh, excuse me? But it's just like very nonchalant. And then he's like, yeah, you know, and sometimes they die in their sleep. But it's like a very long talk. And then he's just like, I hope that made you feel better. And Nick's face is just like, oh.
The police arrive because they got informed about a dog attack. These dog attacks that have been happening every month. Where they also arrest a dog, and he's like, it's a shame, this dog's gonna have to be put down. The dog just looks so like, what is happening?
The poor thing, it's so cute.
They have it like right next to Stu's body as they're loading it into the ambulance. Oh, yeah. Like, I can't believe you did this.
Yeah, and O'Leary is just like, one of my favorite things that she says, or she's like talking about the dog attacks, and she's just like, you know, she like essentially says like you hate to see it, but she says like it's not, you know, it's not good for the dog, it's not good for the people that are getting mauled or something like that. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
It cuts to everyone, like a montage of everybody like mourning Stu's death. I don't really remember like any of the jokes in this per se, because I feel like it goes like, in my mind it always goes straight from that to like them getting the voicemail from Nick. It's like, hey, oh, go ahead.
They just like, the only one that I remember is that they're kind of like showing a montage of like everyone being sad, and there's like one where they're like peeking through Vlad's like into Vlad's like dungeon, and he just has like a naked dude in there. And he's just like holding a whip or something. I don't know. And then there's just like a picture. They show a picture of like everybody together, like including Peter and Stu. And it's so funny because everyone's just like stark white, and then Stu. They like have this like running joke about how Stu is so like red looking and stuff. So I think they basically just like showed everybody being sad. Then they show that picture, and then that's when they get the recording. So there's not really that much that I remember.
Like, Nick leaves him a voicemail that's just like, I got a big surprise, like I'm coming over. And they answer the door, and Nick's there with Stu being alive, except he's got these like big scratches on his face. And Stu talks about he's like, I just like, and it's showing it at the same time. It's like he's like, I just like woke up. And it shows him like struggling out of a body bag with like the ambulance, and he just goes running off. And the police are just like, oh wow, like, I think they say like they must have been on drugs or something.
Yeah, or also like maybe I wonder if he has rabies or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was rabies.
He's rabid.
So but essentially like Stu like wakes up naked in the middle of the woods, and the swearwolves are there with a pair of pants.
That at the bottom of the screen it says reenactment as he's waking up covered in blood.
It's a reenactment, but with all of the actual characters, like
that are all except for the alpha are like not wearing any clothes.
So yeah, he tells about how like the swearwolves like helped him when he came to and all that, and then like all like just revealed that all of the werewolves are at the vampire's house, and it's kind of uneasy at first, but then they all start getting along, and they say like one of them is just like, it was weird like having all these werewolves in the house, like it smelled pretty terrible at first, but you just kind of get used to it.
Open a window.
Yeah.
And so like they're all friends now because of Stu.
Yeah, that's right.
And you get like a quick thing of Viago with Catherine.
96-year-old
yeah,
Catherine.
who like, they decided to be a couple, and like he's like, like some people look at us weird because like, what's this young lady doing with this older man? And they call me a cradle robber.
Oh my gosh,
so
I love her.
And basically that's like the end of the movie. There's some stuff during the credits of Pauline and Vladislav like being a couple again, but also just fighting all the time. Jackie has made her husband her servant and is like reading over all the shit he has to do for her.
I love how she's like, I love you. And he's like, I love you too. And she's like, but I am your master.
Yeah. There's a thing of like,
he's like, okay.
all of the werewolves, or Rhys Darby is talking about how like as the alpha, when he says something, everybody like has to laugh. And then at the very end, after the credits, there's a thing of Deacon hypnotizing you to forget everything you watched in the movie. And that's it. End of this very good movie.
It is very good.
Everybody put Kit through the procession of shame for not watching it until now.
Shame.
It's deserved.
Sorry to be so brutal.
But now I can finally watch the show.
Yes, please do. I don't know anyone else that's watching it. Well, I don't really remember the first season that well, but I've been watching the new season as it's been coming out, so.
I just keep seeing the pictures of Mark Hamill dressed up as a vampire, it's incredible.
That was last week's episode. It was so good. I loved it.
There's a... Taika Waititi did the audio commentary for... Or, directed Thor Ragnarok or whatever. And the audio commentary on it is him just talking shit about the movie the whole time, and how he's just like, but he also is just like talking about how he's like, there's Thor. He's like, people think that's Chris Hemsworth, but that was actually me doing it. They just like replaced my face with Chris Hemsworth. He's like, oh, there's Mark Ruffalo. He's like, it's an inside thing. Like most people don't know. He's like, I actually did like all of the acting for the Hulk, but they just put like Mark Ruffalo's face over it so people would like accept it more. Like the whole fucking commentary, like every actor that pops up, it's pretty funny.
I love that.
All right, Katie, do you got any news?
I have a lot of news actually, because I had news last week, but we didn't do news because we were crying about having watched Somnium. But now that's
news
behind
just didn't
us.
happen.
Yeah, pretty much. There's actually been a lot. I think, because things are, still take your precautions, but a lot of states have started reopening or whatever.
Yeah,
so I think
still just don't go outside. Fuck all these states trying to open up.
Yeah, please don't. Yeah.
Oh my god. On my drive home from work today, I guess it's like graduation weekend for high school, and I passed a high school, and the 3 miles from the football stadium to my house is just lined with people, just all sitting there gathered together, holding graduation signs and shit. Yeah. I was like, oh no, this is my city. Fuck.
Nothing makes me happier as somebody that works at a grocery store is seeing people just not giving a shit about anything.
Oh god.
Yeah, luckily
same
here,
retail.
People are still wearing masks in the actual store, but when I was walking to the store earlier, there was no masks anywhere, and I was like, cool.
We had to run into
people in the store wear masks?
Yeah, they have to. They can't come in.
Damn, I wish my company did that.
Oh no, that's
We're serious.
That's a statewide thing in New Jersey. But what ends up happening, Caitlin and I had to run into a Walmart the other day to get something.
That was your first mistake.
Yeah, but it was I had to get specific insoles for my shoes that the only place that carried them was Walmart, or else I would not have gone in. But it was everybody goes in and crowds in the same aisles. No, as soon as they get in, they all just take their masks off. Nobody wears them over their they just pull down on their chin and shit. It's just a fucking nightmare. Everybody's stupid and I hate it. Anyway, here's some news.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the second season of the Twilight Zone series is going to air June 25th. I saw we have 2 new Stephen King adaptations. Mike Flanagan, who did Doctor Sleep and I think a bunch of other things, is doing an adaptation of the Stephen King book Revival that came out. I was going to say a couple years ago, but I feel at this point it was probably longer than that. That's a very Lovecraftian themed book. And then
I'm in on all things Flanagan.
Yeah. And then I don't know who's connected to this, but HBO just picked up a adaptation for Throttle, which was a novella that Stephen King wrote with Joe Hill. That was part of Full Throttle, which was the short story thingy that came out a while ago. Not my favorite story in the collection, so I don't really know how I feel about that, but it's a thing. Let's see. AMC just acquired the rights to Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles for film and TV products.
Yeah, I heard this, and I saw somebody floating the idea that it may end up becoming or going to Shudder because AMC owns Shudder.
That's why I included it, because that would be exciting. I love Interview with the Vampire. Actually, Queen of the Damned gets shit on a lot, but I actually liked that movie too. So I'd be interested to see what they do with it. I don't know. I haven't read all of the books because the last couple that came out for Vampire Chronicles were very strange. So I don't know, but could be interesting.
I have a feeling I was listening to one of Kevin Smith's podcasts, Fat Man Beyond, where they do comic book news and shit, and they were talking about this, and they're basically theorizing that once this show takes off, they're just going to end The Walking Dead probably.
That's okay.
But, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's about time, but
they should have ended it 2 episodes in.
I'm on board with The Walking Dead until about I don't know, whenever season whenever they get past Woodbury is what I kind of cut out, after the prison. So I
don't know what that means.
Oh, well, I watched through the prison storyline because the comic books, the prison storyline is amazing, but they just bungled it pretty fucking terribly in the show.
Yeah, I have I don't know. I watched up until I don't even know what it was called. There was a civilization where they were all, I don't know. That's the whole show. I watched yeah, I know. I watched 4, 5, or 6 seasons maybe, and I just had a weird thing where some of the seasons I thought were really boring and stupid, and then some seasons I really liked, back and forth, and then I just finally was I can't do this anymore. I just stopped watching, especially because I found out that they killed off my favorite character. So then I just was like, well, fuck you, not gonna watch it anymore.
I feel like the last thing anybody on Earth needs anymore is more opinions about The Walking Dead.
I don't listen to any, so that's ours, I guess.
All right, what else?
Jamie Lee Curtis is directing a new movie called Mother Nature, which is cool, except it's for Blumhouse. So
I can't wait for this movie to come out solely to watch everybody that does nothing but stand Jamie Lee Curtis but shit on Blumhouse to like be extremely fucking conflicted about what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I don't know. I also don't. I mean, I don't know. I was gonna say I think being awesome and like being a good director are not always the same thing, so I'm not really sure. I also have no idea what it's about. So
did either of you guys see where they were doing the Halloween like live tweet thing that she was doing with like a bunch of other people, and like somebody like shit on her and she like quote tweeted it, or so, I forget what like the actual tweet was. It was something about like, because it was Halloween 2018 or whatever, and I think they said something about the like along the lines of like, why did she even come back? She must have been like broke, and she was like, bitch, I did Activia commercials for like 7 years. I don't need money.
Yeah, she was like, I wasn't desperate or something like that. Yeah, I did see that. It's very funny. I mean, I totally support anything she does. I think she's awesome. I think I like fell in love with her when she was on Scream Queens because she just was like the bossest bitch ever. But I don't know. We'll have to see, I guess. My last news is that former WCW World Heavyweight Champion David Arquette confirmed to star in a new Scream movie. So there's that.
Yeah.
I keep seeing stuff about this Scream movie where they're like, so and so's coming back, and I'm like, didn't that person die in like 2 or 3? Like, what is this
who
movie?
knows? Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what it is.
I saw a story like literally right before we recorded that was somebody wrote an article about like, should we bring Drew Barrymore back for Scream 5? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, that's not great. That's not a good thing that should happen.
I hope the entire thing takes place in like, virtual reality.
Yes.
No.
Give me Hell World.
I was gonna say
like virtual reality, but they're like on a spacecraft or something.
Oh my god!
Yes,
on board.
In space.
Nev Campbell somehow
with dinosaurs
somehow became like a fucking astronaut.
Velociraptor.
Yes, just all of it.
Velocinaut. There's a movie idea. Velocinaut. Save that.
I'm ready to take it down.
I've got a brief piece of news that I just saw that I'm excited about. And it is RLJE, which is the company that's done like Mandy and Color Out of Space, and Shudder have got the rights to the new movie from Steven Kostanski, who's the guy who did like Manborg and The Void, called Psycho Gorman.
I'm in on that.
I love it.
Look it up. There's one shot that they've released from it, and it is Psycho Gorman himself, and it looks fantastic already.
I didn't realize the same guy that did The Void did Manborg.
Yep.
That's melting my brain at the moment.
And Leprechaun Returns.
I remember I watched Leprechaun Returns. I don't remember much about it though.
He looks interesting. Like, what is he?
Psycho Gorman.
He's Psycho Gorman.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I like it.
So, you guys want to do some shout outs?
Katie, go.
My shout outs this week all start with the letter W for Werewolves Not Swearwolves. So my first one is another horror podcast called Werewolf Ambulance. They have a lot of episodes. They have like over 200 episodes, but I checked them out because they also did Witchboard. So I listened to their episode on Witchboard and just felt it was just funny because they basically said a lot of the same like stuff that we did about it. And they're both very funny. And they do like a lot of well-known stuff, but that I also listened to their episode on Silver Bullet. So I liked it. Also, I'm gonna recommend the show Wayward Pines because I was just recommending it to somebody. And it's really good. It came out like a while ago, but it's got Matt Dillon, Jason Patric, Carla. I think it's Guggiano. I don't know how to say her name. So if you like, I don't know, it's kind of like horror sci-fi-ish TV show, and I know it's on Hulu. I think it's on Prime also. And my other recommendation is to drink some whiskey. Oh.
I'm dying. Go ahead, Kit.
One semi-related to What We Do in the Shadows, Cronos, which is one of my favorite vampire movies, done by Guillermo del Toro and starring Ron Perlman. Super, super weird vampire film that I really like.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
He like starts bleeding from his nose or whatever, and it's on the bathroom floor, and he just like checks to see if anyone's around, and then just licks it all up. Oh, so gross.
I mean, you don't want to waste it, you know? Like,
that's true. Every drop counts.
That's right.
And then unrelated, Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio from Halloween Havoc 1997.
I understood Mysterio.
The wrong Mysterio.
No, I know this one. He's crazy looking.
Yeah, he's got a big bowl on his head, does magic.
He is Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes. So mine are all, I have 3 Rhys Darby things. He did a
I thought you said Starby. I was like Starbies.
Yeah, 3 Starbies.
Yeah.
I was like
3 things on the Starbies menu.
That's right.
So Meat Shake number 1.
Yes.
He did a show called Short Poppies where he plays a person. He's the main actor in every episode playing a different character in this town.
Wow.
And it's pretty fucking funny. Like one of them, he plays a UFO conspiracy guy that he spends like half the episode like out in the woods trying to get like abducted. It's pretty fucking funny. It's currently on like Hulu and Prime and Tubi.
Oh, awesome.
It's very good. He also had a podcast for a while called The Cryptid Factor that just talked about like just weird like cryptid and alien shit. That then spun off into, he now has a podcast that's only on Spotify called Aliens Like Us, where he like they just discuss aliens and shit, but like it's a Rhys Darby, so it's like he's just consistently like not staying on task and being fucking funny. So far it's pretty good. I think Cryptid Factor was better, but I also am not super thrilled with most of the guests he's had on Aliens Like Us, but he makes it worth listening to. But yeah, definitely check those out, especially Short Poppies. Short Poppies is pretty fucking brilliant. And Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, I like that one.
It's very good. Alright, so next week I have no idea what we're doing because I forgot to ask before we recorded.
Are we still doing Gnome movies?
I don't know. I could only find 3.
That gives us 3 weeks to find a 4th.
Well, that's the thing is there's like 2 more, but they're not streaming anywhere.
The 4th one we can just watch the episode of King of the Hill with Wrinklebottom or Rumplebottom or whatever.
Winklebottom, right?
Winklebottom, yeah.
Like that.
Winklebottom's fucking horrifying. We could do that.
All right, fuck it. So we'll do at least 3 no movies. We'll figure something out for the 4th week. So,
mystery, possibly gnome film.
I don't have my note up, so we'll just do No Mercy first. No
Deal.
Mercy, which I think was on Tubi, maybe Prime.
Is it 2 words or is it like?
It's like GNOMERCY.
Oh my god.
Can't wait. If anybody could figure out how to get us to watch Blood Gnome, please let me know, because I need to see this Julie Strain Gnome movie.
What is it called?
Blood Gnome.
Blood Gnome.
Blood Gnome.
It was the one I was trying to do for like
the
fourth week, but like it's not even like on YouTube or anything. Like it's nowhere to stream.
Oh. I don't like it anyway.
It's gonna be great.
It's looking bad. Looking bad.
Big gnome energy going into next month. All right. Leave us ratings and reviews on all the things, please. Also, we have a t-shirt that you should go buy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Katie, tell us about t-shirt.
It is really rad. It is Shredako. It's
Extreme.
Yeah, and
big X Games energy. If it was haunted.
Yes, essential haunted X Games. Essentially, like it's Tony Hawk but spooky.
She is doing a 900.
I don't even know. I don't. Yeah, so you guys should go listen to our Sadako versus Kayako episode that we did for my birthday last month, because literally the shirt is a joke that Kit made in that episode, and that's our first official merchandise, is this t-shirt based off of a joke. So you should go buy it. I feel like a lot of the people that buy it probably didn't even listen to the episode, but that's fine. It's all good.
Yeah, it's up on Store Frontier. So it's storefrontier.com/IHopeYouSuffer. Or just go to like our Twitter or Instagram. I have it in like a link tree under our bios. You could go follow us on Twitter at IHopeYouSuffer, and Instagram at IHopeYouSuffer Podcast. Go listen to Kit's other podcast, Riff Raff, where they talk about stuff, vampires, and Power Rangers? Is that the latest?
No, but I'm gonna bring it up whenever we do record.
You have to now.
Yeah, I'm required to.
You should look up to see if there's gotta be a metal band that only sings about Power Rangers.
I hope that there is.
You guys should just do the Power Rangers theme song. It's pretty metal.
I've got the Power Rangers soundtrack, and it rules. Extremely metal.
Go follow Katie on all of the things at Werewolf Face. You could listen to my other podcast, Let Me Be Your Pot of Love, and keep an eye out for something new coming in the next couple weeks. That's not that.
That is something else.
Yes. All right. Watch No Mercy, and then watch some No Mercy pay-per-views. All right. I hope you suffer, but why?
Shut up, Nick. You're not Twilight.